Good evening. There's always this moment where it says, you are live, and then it sort of doesn't pop up again. But hi, hello, welcome to you wherever you are. If you are watching live, by all means, feel free to comment in the chat. I can just see you and tell me where you're watching from. That's always good fun. But if you are watching the replay, as I know most of you will be doing, hi, hello, welcome, and come on in to this fun. This is going to be a bit lighthearted, this one. One of the most frustrating things I've always found as a motorhomer, especially when you're new or doing something new for the first time, is that you feel like everybody else has got it all figured out. And I know so many people have told me, oh, you make it look so easy. Oh, I could never do that. Oh, you must have just been born with all this knowledge. And I haven't been at all. And I know lots of people are planning their trips to Europe. Some of you for the very first time. Exciting. And I wanted to share some tips, and I wanted to share some things to help you have an amazing trip. And I thought what I would do is frame this in a way that shares my mistakes and my issues. Now, before I dive on into that, I'm just going to make sure that I am actually live, and then I will just click a little link that will allow me. Let me turn my volume off. Sorry. Allow me to see your comments. So just bear with me 2 seconds. I can do all of that there. Right. So let me get on with this. Hopefully you can see me. I can see you, she says. Oh, it's all fun and games. It's all fun and games. Right. Can you see that? I'm going to wait for somebody to tell me that they can hopefully see that. In the meantime, let me see if I can see if anybody is telling me where they're from and everything else. I can see quite a few people watching actually. So hello for those of you who are watching live. Happy Thursday. Hope you're having an awesome day. Hello, Berry. Berry Moore, what an epic name you've got. I'm pretty impressed with that. But yeah, if you can see that screen, could you just let me know, one of you? Hello, Janine. Hello, Adam. Okay, cool. Right, let me dive on in because I don't want to waste your time. And I know, like I say, a lot of you will be watching the replay anyway. So let's dive on into this. Like I say, it's going to be a bit lighthearted, and I guarantee there are a few things that some of you who have also been to Europe before have done as well. So if you have, by all means, drop it in the comments. We can have a bit of a group camaraderie. I also don't feel quite so foolish having done some of these things. So if you've made the same mistake, or indeed want to share anything else that you've done so people can learn from your experiences, then by all means, share that as well. Hello Diane from Newcastle. Hello Jane from Sheffield. Hiya Andy. Andy Fancy, what an epic name you've got too. Andy from Hertfordshire. And Sven, oh yes, Sven, you are touring Norway at the moment. I've been following you in the Wandering Bird Facebook group. You've been posting some epic pictures, so thank you for that, because I'm going up to Sweden and Norway in September and October, and I've been looking at all your places and maybe saving a few of them, so thank you for sharing. Right, let me dive on into this, but like I say, if any of these are ringing a bell for you, by all means, let me know. Now, for those of you who are watching for the first time, or perhaps you found this on YouTube, hi, hello, my name is Kat. I run the website and the YouTube channel and the social media and all the rest of the stuff, Wandering Bird. And I quit my job. I used to be an air traffic controller. I quit my job back in 2018, which is terrifyingly 6 years ago now. That's scary. And I quit that to go touring around the UK and Europe with a motorhome. And one of the places, lots of the places that I wanted to go to were in Europe. So I have now done an awful lot of touring around Europe in the motorhome. I'm fairly confident, just sort of setting off. And you know those really annoying people in the Facebook groups or on the forums like, you just need your passport and your wallet and you can figure it out. You can, once you've got a lot of experience and once you know what you're doing. But when you're learning and you're trying to figure out what you're doing, it's not that straightforward. So I'm going to share with you some of the pitfalls that you might want to avoid, and yeah, some tips on how you can not fall into them. So the first and one of the biggest things that I really got stuck with when we first, well, this is actually our second trip to Europe, was we ran out of gas. And the reason this was such a shock was that we didn't anticipate it. Sometimes you make mistakes and they're literally just mistakes. Sometimes you don't things just happen to you. And sometimes you don't even know what you don't know, as the famous saying goes. And this was one of these ones that we hadn't even considered. So our very first trip to Europe with a motorhome was in July and August. We went to the Italian lakes in the middle of the school holidays. I'm going to be talking about that shortly soon as well. And we were there for a couple of weeks during the school holidays and didn't even think about the gas because it was summer, it was hot, we definitely didn't need any heating. And we had 6 kilogram gas bottles in the motorhome. And 2 weeks on 12 kilograms of gas, easy peasy, not a problem at all. Our next trip to Europe was just after I'd left my job. So this was, I think it was March or maybe early April 2018. I know it was a bank holiday weekend. And on the Saturday, we're sitting at a little campsite. We've got our daughter with us. So there's 3 of us in the van. We've got the heating on because it's still cold, it's March. And we were cooking dinner and then suddenly the gas bottle dies. Not a problem, we thought. We will go and change to the other gas bottle. And we'd always had it set up so that we had to manually change it. So we knew when the gas bottle had run out so that we could then fix it. If you've got it so you've got an automatic changeover, don't get me wrong, that's really good at 2 o'clock in the morning when you really don't want to have to get out of bed and change the gas bottle. But you then have to keep checking to make sure that your gas bottle has changed over so you know when to fix it. So we went out the van to change over to the new gas bottle, to discover that neither of us had picked up a new gas bottle for this trip. So we had one gas bottle that only had a little bit of gas left in it, and then one that was completely empty. So this is also a really good time to plug my pre-trip checklist, which I will leave a link for below after this chat. Make sure you've worked your way through it, because this was one of the reasons that sort of checklist evolved. But this was when we discovered quite quickly that you cannot just exchange an exchangeable British gas bottle when you're in the middle of France. The connectors don't fit. So we rushed to the nearest hardware store, bric-a-marché, whatever it was called, trying to get bits to make it fit. You can't do it. You physically need the actual pigtails, and there are several different pigtails, depending on which country you're going from, that will connect onto your UK system to then connect on. I think there's 3 different types of pigtails to connect on the pigtails for the different bottles around Europe. We didn't have any of those pigtails, and it was a bank holiday weekend, so we couldn't get any of those pigtails from any shop. I don't know if you've ever been to France on a bank holiday weekend, but like everything is shut from about 4 or 5 o'clock on the Saturday. Very little opened on the Sunday, and then the Monday, I haven't got a cat and hell's chance. And we tried everything while the shops were still open on the Saturday, couldn't do it at all. So we literally had to sit there. We finally managed to find a little campsite. We could plug in the electric, we could run the heating off the electric, but we had to change where we were staying so that we could do that, because the little site we were on, I think the one that we were on didn't have electric hookup or something like that. We basically had to just change all of this last minute and get us through. And we basically had takeaways the entirety of the time. But again, on a bank holiday in France, that's not that easy to find. So yes, it wasn't a brilliant plan. Our daughter was not impressed. It was very, very cold. So here are some tips if you are planning on traveling not in the middle of summer on how to avoid this. Now, the first one is easy. Short trips only. If you're only going to do a week or less in Europe, don't worry about it. I would always carry 2 6-kilogram bottles unless you're going in the middle of summer, in which case you're not going to be using the heating at all, and your 6-kilogram bottle will last you for ages. But if you are going to be going at a time of year when you think you might need to put the heating on, having at least 2 gas bottles is really helpful. But if you are going to do short trips only, you can just stick with a basic setup. If you're going to be doing a lot of touring in Europe, it's really worth investing in a refillable gas setup. There are several different ones that you can do, and they're quite easy to find someone who can install them for you. Please, it's gas. Make sure you get someone to either properly install them for you, or if you install them yourself, like we did, then make sure you get a proper approved gas engineer to sign it all off. You'll probably need that for your insurance purposes anyway. I know we did, but make sure you get that all properly fitted out. But I've got refillable gas bottles now, Gaslow I've got. I know there's Gassit, there's Safe Fill, they're all different types of ones. I recommend if you're going for the bottles that you get the ones that you can fill from the external thing, not directly into the bottle itself, because there are some countries in Europe that are quite funny about you actually refilling the bottle itself. So make sure it's fitted into a system in your van. But like I say, I've used mine now for years. After this, we invested in a refillable system after this, and I've changed it on to the motorhomes as we've moved them on, and it has been brilliant. You will get 3 different types of adapter. Make sure you carry them with you in your motorhome, and it makes life so much easier. I know refillable gas has been getting harder to find in the UK. Perversely, in Europe, it's quite easy to find still. Most countries. I will get to that at the end. But I know it has been getting harder. However, it might be getting harder to find on the big main service stations, although it seems to be now that the ones that have still got it are going to keep it, as far as I can tell, certainly for the foreseeable future. But loads of motorhome service centres and sales centres have seen this problem, and they are paying to get these installed. So although they might not be on your main route, there are places that are springing up, certainly within within a region where you can detour a bit and get LPG as you travel. So I still think it's worth it if you're going to be doing a lot of touring in Europe. Alternatively, you can just buy the pigtails. You can use exchangeable bottles. And if you have space, I would take 1 British bottle with you with the gas, take all your pigtails, and then you've got space to put a second bottle from whatever country you're going into. Just bear in mind that when you get there, you are going to need to pay a deposit. You can use a campsite for your address, so don't worry about that, but you're going to have to pay for that bottle. And then you're going to need to either carry it around with you, carry it back to the UK with you, or if you go to a different country, you're going to need to then swap it out for another one and have the whole process all over again. So it can be quite an expensive way of doing it. But if you prefer to use exchangeable bottles, that's the way forward, and just make sure you've got all the pigtails. There are some countries in Europe that don't have LPG. For example, Iceland, where I went to last year, they did not have any refillable systems in Iceland that you could use for a motorhome or a camper van, which was really frustrating. So actually what I had to do is at the top of Denmark at Hirtshals, there was an LPG station. I refilled up on that because I'd taken one of my exchangeable bottles. I refilled that up. I then had a full gas bottle that I could use. I had 2, I think, in the van. And basically then I had to pay to use electric because it wasn't my van, the Bailey van that I took up there. It wasn't set up with the whole system. And then I could use that, but I used electric going around because it was quite chilly being Iceland. There were some nights I wanted to put the heating on. And so when it was getting a bit chilly, I needed to use the electric heater, which worked beautifully. But sometimes if you are in a country that doesn't have LPG, you need to find other alternatives to stay nice and toasty warm. But that was an interesting way of finding out that all the gas bottles didn't figure out. And do you know what? When I first did it, there weren't blogs like Wandering Bird, and there weren't loads of YouTube channels, and there weren't lots of information. So trying to figure out what the heck we needed to do to fix the problem was really quite difficult. So that's one of the reasons that I always like to share the mistakes and the problems so that it can help you learn things. Next mistake I made was I used to confuse driving distance and time. Now, this might sound really stupid, and I included this specifically because it might sound really stupid. And I wanted you to realise, if you are a beginner, that you don't need to know everything before you start going around touring Europe. I definitely didn't. So I used to think that, right, we were going to do 200 miles every day, for example. Now, 200 miles on a motorway is, a couple of hours, 3 hours, whatever. If you're doing 200 miles around small roads in France or Norway, where if you're doing 30 miles an hour, you're doing really, really well. That is many, many hours of driving, and it's exhausting driving as well. Driving on a motorway when you've got cruise control or whatever on there is quite straightforward. Little driving on little roads, it's really hard work, really tiring mentally. And if you have planned in to do 200 miles driving every single day, regardless of the roads, you're going to get tired really, really quickly. So my advice for you on this is to understand the different types of road that you will be on, or certainly the different environment that you could expect there. Excuse me. For example, Norway. You've got lots of the ferries, so that always slows you down as well. If you are going like around the coastal road in France and you want to avoid the toll roads, great, beautiful, loads of villages, lots of stop signs, lots of things that will slow you down, lots of crazy roundabouts, we'll get to them in again. But look at the potential route that you might be taking. I don't mean the exact route road by road, but you'll know if you're going to be taking A roads, B roads, motorways, toll roads, or really, really small roads, and then you can adjust your speed or your planning accordingly. If you want to know a rough idea on how long a route will take you, the website that I tend to use is called Via Michelin. That's really useful in Europe for putting in 2 points. It'll give you lots of different route options, and then it'll give you a rough idea on time. It'll also give you a rough idea on tolls. The other one that I use when you're planning, which is brilliant, is one called Wilder Trips. They've actually got a deal on at the moment. If you use the code Wandering Bird, you get 50% off their annual plan. But they're brilliant because you can put in all the different stops for your entire road trip, and it will tell you the rough driving distances between them. So I really like that. If you're like, oh no, that's a bit long, yeah, that's 4 or 5 hours in one day. And you can either choose to do that and then have a rest day the next day, or you can break it up and book another campsite or air or whatever you want to use in the middle of it. So definitely keep that in mind. And if in doubt, make sure you're conservative, because if you're going to be using campsites, most campsites will have a cutoff time that you have to arrive by. And if you've said, oh, it's going to take me 2-3 hours to get from campsite to campsite, you've left late in the morning planning on a 2-3 hour drive, but actually it's going to take you 6 or 7 hours, then you could get there too late. You might not be allowed into the campsite. You might lose your booking fee and everything else. So it can be really frustrating. Especially if you're using campsites, make your estimates a little bit, overestimate the amount of time it's going to take you to get there. So the next thing, which kind of ties into the previous one, was I never used to plan enough rest days, mainly because, to be honest, I didn't do all the driving. My ex-husband, Mr. WB, he used to do all of the driving, and I didn't quite anticipate, as the planner and the navigator, quite how tiring driving a motorhome can be, especially, like I say, around those smaller roads. Now that I do all of the driving, or 99% of the driving myself, I appreciate how tiring it is, and I'm definitely planning in more rest days. So that's definitely something that I used to do badly or not so well that I have got better at. So whether you are planning or the navigator or the driver, just remember touring can be exhausting. I've just done 5 weeks going around Scotland and the Outer Hebrides, and it was absolutely beautiful. But at the end of that, I am pretty tired, actually, quite sort of mentally drained, especially when I haven't or didn't have a plan day to day to day. I was sort of making it up so long. But that in itself can be quite mentally draining. Like, where am I going to stay tonight? What route am I going to take? What's the weather like? Where am I going to walk back? All of those things. So yeah, make sure you give yourself rest days or downtime if you're in the van full time or long term, so that you can then reset and recharge your batteries, because you need to do that as well. A really good tip is to either plan a complete non-driving day every 2 to 3 days. So if you are on a bit of a tour, make sure you can plan that in. Or if you want to keep moving day to day, perhaps if you're using airs and you don't know if you can stay 1 night or 2 nights, or you want to keep moving, just keep the driving time to about 1 or 2 hours every day, certainly for a period of it, and it will make it much less stressful for you. So another thing, another mistake that we made was not using the gear properly or testing it properly before a trip. Now, admittedly, we didn't do this for everything, but we did do this. This one in particular is one of my most embarrassing moments or mistakes that we made. So we went to Mont d'Or. This was, I think it was February 2021. So in the middle of lockdown, but we were stuck in France. So we went to Mont d'Or, which is in one of the ski resorts in France. The actual ski resorts weren't open, but the airs were all open, and they were hoping that people would come, and they were encouraging you to come and try it all out and basically get some money and economy going again in these places that have been locked down for a year and a bit. So we went to Mont d'Or, and obviously lots of snow, you need certain gear. So we made sure that we had winter tyres, and we made sure that we had snow chains. Now, we did our research, having never used snow chains before. We did lots of research on the best ones for motorhomes, the best ones for mountain use and all this kind of stuff. We bought the appropriate set, we put it in the motorhome, and we carried on off to Mont d'Or. What we didn't do was take the snow chains out of the bag and make sure they actually fit, which now I say it sounds ridiculous, but we just didn't do it. I could not entirely sure why, but hey, it didn't happen. So when we got to this air in Mont d'Or, we actually got there before we got there, it was actually quite an easy route. It had been gritted, and on the main road, it was quite easy to go up there with a van. But when we got there, needed to put the snow chains on to get out of this air, we discovered that the snow chains were the right diameter, but not the right width. So although they went on the wheel, they weren't wide enough for a motorhome tyre. We'd apparently accidentally bought car ones, not motorhome tyre ones. So this is a really, really good time to remind you to make sure if you have got any safety gear, if you have got any emergency gear, if you've got any things to secure your van, like one of these chocks, make sure you know how they work, make sure you've got the keys to take them on and off, all of this stuff. Make sure that everything that you are taking the effort with you that's taken up your payload, you actually know how to use and how to get the most out of it, and that you know if you do need to use it. Another really good one that a lot of people do is like these tire inflators. If people buy them, they're like, great, if I've got a flat tire or whatever. Now normally if you've discovered you've got a flat tire, you're going to be on the side of a road, and sod's law, it's probably going to be a busy road. Now if you're going to get out and try and inflate that tire yourself, please make sure you know how to use it first, because that's not the time to figure out how to use the thing, or indeed to find out that it doesn't work because you haven't used it. So that's just another example of a bit of kit that I know a lot of people haven't tried but have on their van. Now, data is something that worries a lot of people, and frankly, for good reason, because especially after Brexit and all the rules and all the stuff, the bills can actually be really expensive. And although there is a data cap, we've all had these little texts, well, certainly if you're on your internet a lot, that say, you've reached the end of your internet usage or cap or whatever it is. Do you want to keep using the internet? Well, yes, I do. And you think, I'll just pay for it later. But it can be really, really expensive. And I know, traveling with my daughter after Brexit, her of the never-ending YouTube streaming and all the rest of the stuff, it can get very, very expensive. So, especially if you're traveling with kids or grandkids or whatever, but even for yourself, make sure that you've downloaded some movies, some TV shows, your music, podcasts, audiobooks. I'm a big audiobook fan. At the moment, I'm working through the series by Sarah J. Maas. It's a fantasy elves, Lord of the Rings kind of series. It's brilliant. But the audiobooks are like 28 hours each. They're huge. And although the data isn't enormous, I am on the internet all the time with Wandering Bird stuff, uploading videos and checking social media and putting things on social media and doing nice chats with this, although I'm not in the van at the moment, obviously. But all of this kind of stuff uses data, uses internet. So make sure that you have got as much that you don't need to download and use when you're touring in Europe as possible. Another really big thing that a lot of people forget to do is if you are taking a ferry across from the UK to France, if you don't turn your data off on the ferry, it goes onto this, I can't think what the actual word is, but basically this roaming tariff. And that, if you start using data on that, can get really expensive as well. So I always put my phones on airplane mode on the ferry. Just a little tip for you there. You don't really need to worry about it with the tunnel because you're not on there long enough to worry about it. If you have got kids, make sure that their data is turned off, because otherwise they'll sit there playing on some game and buying coins or doing whatever they do, watching YouTube. Jade, she's on Spotify, so she just streams her music all the time. And I'm like, you can't do that when you're touring in Europe anymore. It's way too much data. So yeah, just make sure that they know. The other thing you can do is buy a SIM card for Europe, put it in either your dongle, or you can actually put one in your phone and use that as a hotspot. And that will be a little bit cheaper if you're going to be in Europe a lot. So that's another option that you can do. Now, I included this one. Thank you, Jane. She said maritime roaming. That's exactly the word that I needed. The maritime roaming was really expensive. And also thank you to Sven. Yeah, Finland's another country that doesn't have refillable gas. So yes, there are a couple of them. Not many of the ones that most people would go to in Europe, and certainly for the first couple of instances. But yeah, Finland and Iceland are two that I know of. Now, I included our brakes catching fire as it was sort of our mistake, and it was also sort of just really bad luck. So what happened is there's our little van. That was our first ever motorhome, the first one right in the front. That was Little Ship. You can see the little motorbike trailer behind it. And this is on the top of the Swiss Alps. This was the exact day that the brakes had caught fire. So as you can see, the van didn't burn into smithereens, and we got up the next hill to stay here for the next night. And the reason we parked at the top of this hill is because we had just done the bit going down the mountain where the brakes had caught fire and we'd lost our brakes. We'd had it all fixed. We'd gone up the next mountain out the way and we were too scared to go down the other side. So we decided to stay up there for the night. So let me tell you what happened. So we had just been to the Italian lakes. This was on our very, very first trip to Europe. And it was crazy busy, and we decided to run away to the Swiss Alps. Now, we hadn't planned any mountainous trips or journeys for this thing. Not that it really mattered. We had decent tyres on the van, and we go anywhere you like. The best thing about motorhoming is you can absolutely change your plans. So we drove north into Switzerland, and we were going up and down and all around the Swiss Alps, because they are, as you can see from the picture, absolutely stunning. And we stopped at this place called the Gelmerbahn funicular, which, if you've never heard of it, add it to your bucket list. It's brilliant. And it's basically this funicular that takes you up a mountain backwards. There's a video of it on the Wandering Bird YouTube channel from, it must be 2017, 2018. I can't remember when I put it up, years ago. But poor Jade, who doesn't like heights, and I'm there being the mother of the year and filming her. She's going, I don't think I like this. But anyway, beautiful, absolutely stunning scenery. You should definitely do that. But when we turned up at the funicular, we smelled that our brakes were really hot. We thought, oh, it's all right, we're going to stop for a few hours. It'll be absolutely fine. And when we got back, there was still a bit of a weird smell on them, but they'd been sitting there for about 4 or 5 hours. So we figured it was just sort of lingering around. We then started driving down the side of the mountain, and we'd gone maybe 2-3 hairpins down from the funicular car park, and we lost all brakes. And I cannot explain to you how terrifying that was, and how grateful I am that I was not the one driving, because the fear of being pushed down the mountain, not so much just the motorhome, but we had a bike trailer behind us that was unbraked. That's another reason we upgraded our bike trailer to a proper braked one, because we've got 2 bikes on a trailer pushing the van, and the only way we had was either engine braking and our handbrake. We managed to get down. I don't think I said a word for about 20 minutes. I was genuinely really quite scared. And poor Jade was sat in the back just white. And we managed to get down the mountain. I'm still here. The van is there. We were all good. And it was just absolute fluke that there was a town at the bottom, that there was a garage and a mechanic forecourt. And we sort of pulled into the forecourt in this cloud of steam. And this mechanic, bless him, he came out and just went, oh. And we were just white. So bless him, he called his son, who actually spoke some English. He didn't speak any, bless him, but they came and they fixed our van. It took a few hours. We bought them a big crate of beer and obviously paid them for their time and effort. And then we were off again. And it was such a terrifying experience that was fixed really quite easily once we got down there. And what happened, so that you know, is the brake fluid in the van was new to us. We had owned it maybe a month or 2 before we did this trip. And we'd done Wales, and we'd done Scotland for like 2 weeks. And then we decided we're going to take to Europe, because we did. And we had not had a proper service. So something that I always recommend you now do, if you have a new van or before you're doing a big trip, is getting a proper pre-trip service. And what we didn't realize was that the brake fluid hadn't been serviced, or hadn't been changed, or had been missed, or whatever had happened, but it was basically mostly just water. So going up and down the mountains, it got really hot, it had evaporated, and then there was no more brake fluid. Again, very simple, but absolutely terrifying when it was happening. So please make sure you get a proper service before your trip, so that you can avoid all of that stuff. But a couple of other things that I don't think we did anywhere near as much as we certainly do now. Certainly when I'm driving on my own, I do this a lot, is if I'm driving down a mountain, and like a big mountain like in Europe, I will try and stop regularly. And they do have parking places where you can just stop and just wait for 20 odd minutes or so and let your brakes cool down a bit before you go on. Also, and this is really, really hard, easy to say, really hard to do, don't ride the brake when you're descending. Make sure that you take your foot completely off the brake. I mean, cover it by all means, but take it off so that it's not constantly on, because obviously that makes it really hot. So give it time just to cool down, but it's really quite terrifying when you're going down these really steep hairpins in the middle of the Alps or Pyrenees or wherever, and you take your foot off the brake and the van freewheels. But yeah, I know it's quite scary. Use engine braking. That's something that I've taught myself since then, and now understand a lot more than I did at the time. And also another way you can avoid all this is never driving a mountain, but the mountains are beautiful. And if you do like being around the nature and just the stunning views of the mountains make my soul happy. So I will never stop doing that. But learning how to drive in them is definitely something that everybody should do if you're going to go in there, and make yourself a little bit less terrifying. Now, I included this in the mistakes of sleeping on a riverbed. Nothing happened here. So this is in Austria. This is in the Austrian Alps. And this was, must have been on the next trip, so second or third trip to Europe. And as you can see, we parked on this sort of riverbed on the edge of it, and it was a place that we found on Park for Night. And it was absolutely beautiful. We stayed there for a night, had no signal whatsoever, in the middle of nowhere. You can see the little river, it was lovely, got the drone out, it was all beautiful. And there were, a few people and walkers and all this stuff going on. What we discovered later was that this is a floodplain, basically, and that the mountains, if they have rain on a mountain, it could be many, many miles away, it will still come down the mountain and this floods regularly. Now, the mistake was obviously not knowing that this was a floodplain, and I've included it because it's a kind of stupid thing that if you don't really have mountains around, like we don't, certainly in southern England, we don't have very many mountains at all. It wasn't even something that occurred to me. And now that I know, and again, it's one of the things that seems really obvious, but whether people like myself go, oh, it's a superb place, you should stay there for the night, do your own research, do your own due diligence, and something like in the middle of the mountains, remember that rain can be falling miles away. You might not ever see it, but it could raise that water of a riverbed really, really quickly. So that's something to just bear in mind as a learning curve, because that's what we're all here for, is just learning a little bit about things to look for when you're choosing your wild parking spaces. And like I said, that was something that didn't even occur to me. That bit where we said was obviously a lot better than the one that's a little bit further down. You can see that that's a lot closer to the river and would be much more liable to flood. But if it had been a flash flood or something like that, yeah, the van would have been caught in it. I do a lot of last minute trips. I do not like doing last minute trips in peak season. And our very first trip to Europe, this is the one with the Italian lakes, was July and August. And I had just learned about these things called airs. And I was like, oh, airs are amazing. You don't have to book anywhere. You can go anywhere you want to. There will be a space for you. It's brilliant. So we decided to go to the Italian lakes, one of the most popular tourist destinations in Europe, in the middle of August. Don't do that. It's beautiful. Go, absolutely go. Do not go in the middle of July and August. It's mental. If you are going to do a last minute trip in peak season, try and avoid the busy areas, the main tourist areas. You can absolutely do last minute trips pretty much anywhere in Europe if you're going to stay away from the main coastlands and away from, like I say, the Italian lakes, the main touristy bits. The other thing you can do if you are going to travel in the peak season is book them in advance as far as you possibly can. And you can use, I did a whole thing about finding campsites recently, so you can find that on the Wandering Bird YouTube channel or indeed on the Facebook page. There's a whole thing about how you can find availability, how you can find spaces on campsites. If you are doing a last minute trip and you want to go somewhere that's busy, I would try and book a campsite up rather than using airs, just because they were queuing. They were like 4, 5, 6 deep, waiting for people to leave the airs. It was crazy. One thing we did figure out was that people in Europe, they love their siestas. So because it's so hot over there, especially in the summer, people tended to leave an air about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and they'd only drive like an hour or two. And then they would be parked up by 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, ready for siesta time. So if you wanted to go to a specific air, I highly recommend you get there for about 11:30, 12 o'clock, which I know might sort of stifle your trip. But if you want to go to a specific place, like around the Italian lake, if you got there for early lunchtime, you've got a much higher chance of getting a space than if you arrive at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because it's just not going to happen. But again, if you go slightly inland or slightly away from the main areas, there were loads of airs that we found around northern Italy that had plenty of space. So it's just keeping away from those really crazy things. And don't be scared to change your plans. The best thing about motorhoming is you are not stuck. Even if you have paid for a campsite and you're going to lose a little bit of your fees or whatever, although if you paid for a campsite, you've got space, so it's not quite so busy. But if you get there and you hate it, go somewhere else. It's the best thing about being in a van. You can literally put your house on your back. You're a snail. You can go wherever you want to. Now this I put in again for a little bit of humour and just a little bit of a mistake. I expected all campsites that I found in Europe to be of the same quality of the Caravan and Motorhome Club or the Camping and Caravanning Club, or to be fair, pretty much any of our big campsites, even the independent ones. They are a certain standard that we Brits expect from our campsites. The French don't have the same standards. Not all of them. Not all of them. If you're going to the holiday parks, the big campsites, you will find absolutely impeccably clean amenities and everything else. If you go to one of the smaller, more rustic ones, you will literally find holes in the ground to do your business in the bathrooms, and possibly showers that are sort of built from wooden huts and stuff. Now, if you like that, not a problem at all. I wasn't expecting it. And the first time we turned up at this French campsite, and it was basically just this sort of hole in the ground for the toilet. And I went, no, just no, not doing that. I'm using the van. So that, again, it was just a learning curve for me. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect them to be such a big range in quality and facilities, let me put it that way. So again, like I say, it's just a learning thing. Make sure you do your research, make sure you read the reviews. If you are worried and if you want to make sure you do get a campsite that's got a certain, level of toilets and showers and all of this stuff, use the ACSI. Now, these are the same company that does the camping card, which is the discount card, but I'm not talking about them. They do a series of checks, ACSI checks. So they overcomplicate it completely, because they've got the great and small campsites, but they've also got ACSI checked or approved or something like that on their website. So you can actually find where real people, have gone round to all of these sites and checked the facilities and taken proper photos and all of this stuff. And also, you can find campsites that are affiliated with, like, the Caravan and Motorhoming Club, and they are a certain standard, because the Caravan and Motorhome Club know exactly what sort of things their readers and the people who use their facilities they want. So if you are worried about them, you can absolutely use those, and you will get a certain level of facilities that will make life easier. Now, I said over going to Europe, we found the airs, this was all a brilliant thing. It really made me anxious not to know where we were going to be staying each night, which, given that I've done Scotland, I've done Ireland, and I've just done the Hebrides again, without any plans whatsoever. I've got over that. And I went all the way when I went up to Iceland. I hadn't got a clue where I was staying any of the nights around Iceland, or any of the nights, or a couple of the nights, but most of the nights around Iceland. But most of the trip there and back, I made up as I went along as well. And the reason of doing that is because I now understand how to use airs. But when I started, they were really intimidating. I couldn't get my head around the fact that you didn't have to book. And although now somebody shared this with me the other week, there's a scheme now called Camping Car Park, where they're basically old airs that have been given over to this scheme, and you can now book them. They're basically like a campsite or an approved parking place. They haven't got very many facilities, or very few facilities. But so the Camping Car Park scheme will actually allow you to book a place in one of the airs. But I was really anxious about using them. And the problem with doing that is it does stifle you a little bit with being able to explore. And part of the thing that I love doing the most with the motorhome is going exploring. So if you aren't using the airs and approved stopovers the way they're meant to be used, you feel very sort of regimented in where you have to go. And if you are going to be touring a lot in Europe, I highly recommend that you figure out how to use airs, how to find the airs. And again, I shared all that a couple of weeks back on the last live. And also how you can, if you're brand new, how you can use a mixture of campsites and airs. Perhaps if you're going to a campsite for a few days, use an air on the way down there, on the way back home, or just build up your confidence slowly, but without it having the ability to ruin your entire trip. I don't want to make you so anxious that you don't want to go. But also, if you do use airs, make sure that you give yourself enough time to find a backup spot. And the nice thing about them is there's so many, especially around France and Germany, that you can always find a backup within sort of 20 minutes or so. But make sure you give yourself time to do that. Now, small confession time. I seem to have a way of just finding really narrow roads, and this sadly hasn't stopped now that I'm no longer navigating. I'm actually doing the driving myself. I drive down some absolutely insane roads that a motorhome really shouldn't be going down. if you can avoid this, you'll find that you get far less dirt on the side of your van, but also it gets a lot less stressful. Now, with a motorhome as such, it's not been that bad. What you need to do, obviously, use a proper sat nav, but also if you are look for low bridges or you look for really narrow junctions with a motorhome, you can tend to get to pretty much anywhere as long as you're within those walls. They haven't got those parameters on the road. When you're pulling a trailer or a car or vehicle or whatever, it gets a lot harder. So if you are using a trailer or if you're a particularly long vehicle, make sure that you are using a proper sat nav. We went down this road I think it was in the south of France. I think it was on the way to Biarritz, and had the bikes on the back. And we went down this road and I thought, I don't think I've gone the right road. I think I've directed him off, and went down a bit further. And I was like, right, no, I think we're on the wrong road here. What we should have done then is tried to find a way to stop, turn around. The problem when you've got a motorhome and a trailer is you're so long, you can't just reverse into someone's driveway and sort of do a 7-point turn and go off again. So we carried on going and we carried on going, and we ended up in this dead end up a hill with the motorhome and a trailer. And there were like people's driveways, but they had the big wooden gates and stuff on them, so you couldn't actually get in anywhere. We ended up having to take the trailer off, which on a hill is interesting, and then reverse the motorhome up into, I think it was like an old people's home or something, turn it round, reattach the trailer. Yeah, this is when I started going, no, when I said we've gone wrong, we're going to stop and fix it sooner rather than just carry on blindly, because that was actually could have been quite interesting, that one. And also in Lyon France, I've just put a little note here to remind me to tell you, don't forget about the crazy France roundabout law. Now, not all of them, and indeed I would say possibly the majority of main routes, main roundabouts, all of that stuff, they have changed the law, so that roundabouts now work in the exact same way that they do over here in the UK, going the opposite direction, obviously, but they work the same priority way. The crazy France roundabout law, if you don't know about it, is that if you are on the roundabout, minding your own business, going around, trying to find your exit, and somebody comes up to an exit, you have to stop on the roundabout and give way to them. Now, they are signposted, but they're actually quite easy to miss. And it's one of those crazy laws that I always try and look for the signs when I go up. But yeah, you will expect some elderly French person of an advancing year, let me put it that way, to just barrel onto the roundabout. We're expecting you to stop for them. So just be aware of that. That's one of the other crazy things. But yeah, using a proper sat nav, keeping an eye out for signs. I'm amazed how many people use a sat nav, but don't still look at the road signs. The thing with sat navs you've got to remember is that every single road has been marked up by, well, initially by a person, to say what the height and the width and the tunnels and the bridges and all that kind of stuff is. And the sat navs, all of them, take it from 2 or 3 of these source maps. So if it's trying to divert you down somewhere, it's because the road hasn't been marked up properly. But they all do it. I have not found a sat nav yet that never send you. I use a TomTom. I think it's brilliant, but even now it still sends me occasionally down this crazy road, and that's just because the road has been marked up incorrectly and it thinks that it's okay to go down there, or conversely it avoids the road because it thinks it's not okay to go down there. So understanding how the sat nav works will help you realize that, oh no, that's not good, and using the signs will really help as well. Now, I wanted to share this. I'm going to leave a link to the Europe touring checklist. If you are heading to Europe and you're feeling a bit nervous and you want to know a bit more about the kind of things that you're going to need in Europe, a kit, because they need a special kit that you've got to have over there, I'll leave the link to the Europe touring checklist below it. But also, I wanted to welcome you to join us in the Wandering Motorhome Club next week. I'm doing a detailed training on touring Europe, what you need, how you can overcome certain issues, certain problems, tips and tricks, all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to do it to help answer questions as much as I possibly can, to help people who are going to Europe for the first time or they're quite new feel as confident as possible about the Europe trip. So if you do want to come and join us, that is going to be next Thursday, same time, 7 o'clock. And you can find it on that web address, wandering-bird.com/WMC. And that will be a proper Zoom call. So you can actually talk to me, I can talk to you, I can help you plan your trips, all of that stuff. So I'm going to leave this up there. I saw a question come in. Let me just tick back to there. Helen says, do you use search for sites on the continent, please? So search for sites is brilliant, but search for sites is British. And what you need to understand from search for sites or park for night or camper contact, I use all three in different reasons, is that they are user generated content, which means that people like you and me could find a spot, we can log into the app, we can say, hey, here's an amazing place to stay overnight, and nobody checks it. Like if you wanted to wind somebody up, you could put a pin outside somebody's house and say, look, amazing place to stay overnight. It's that easy and that worryingly inconsistent. So I use search for sites mainly in the UK and Ireland purely because it's British and lots of people who use that are British speaking, and just by sheer numbers the majority of people who are British speaking will going to be using it in the UK and Ireland. Park for night is what I tend to use mostly in Europe because there are many more Europeans who use park for night than use search for sites, which means that there are generally more places you can find on park for night or on camper contact for Europe than you can in search for sites, purely just down to volume of people who are using the app. You can use both. You can absolutely use both, and I would I have paid for yearly memberships for both search for sites and park for night. Camper contact I use less. Because I used to use it an awful lot when we had an 8-meter motorhome and pulling a 2-meter trailer, so we were huge. And Camper Contact had a way of limiting the spaces based on how long you were and sort of the air length you needed and all that kind of stuff. But obviously I'm only a 6.9 meter motorhome now, so I don't need to worry about that in quite the same way. So no, I tend to use search for sites for the UK and Ireland and park for night for Europe, purely, like I say, for that reason. They both work in both places. It's just I like to check both of them. I don't think there are any other questions. If there are, then by all means drop them in the chat, or if you're watching the replay, drop them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them for you. But if not, I will bid you all farewell. Thank you very much for your time, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.